Why does Splatoon have more crossovers?
It does.
I guess, but not really. It's like saying Neapolitan is a crossover between vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate.
I'm sorry, what are you going on about?
Well, besides that one Squid Girl cosmetic, all Splatoon crossovers are just Splatfests, and that's cool and all, but like, also not that interesting at the end of the day. At least not when all these other games are really pushing the envelope with their own crossovers.
Like, I see what you're saying, but Splatoon doesn't really need anything like that. It'd break the immersion.
Yeah, it probably would, but it'd be neat. So today we're going to do exactly that.
Oh, for the love of God, can we at least wait for tomorrow? It's like 2 a.m.
Nope, because now I'm thinking about it and it's going to bother me all night, so I need to get this off my chest right now.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected.
Just means you know me all too well. So with that, we're going to be creating brand new Splatoon weapons based on these video game crossovers. For this one, we're not going to have a very strict criteria, as long as we get across the crossover idea well enough, while also making it so if someone wasn't aware of the source material, it wouldn't be too out of place either. Essentially, we want to have fun with these ideas and designs, while trying our best to still make it feel Splatoon-ish at the very least. Which I feel like I achieved, to varying degrees, but we'll get to that later. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's begin. It only feels natural to start with another Nintendo property, as realistically, if something like crossover weapons ever did happen, it would likely be from another Nintendo property, akin to how most other Nintendo crossovers tend to be with other Nintendo characters. Of course, there's exceptions, some of them weirder than others, but for Nintendo it does tend to be the norm. And with Mario being their mascot, it would make a whole hell of a lot of sense to start there, especially considering the OG idea for Splatoon was supposed to be a Mario sports game of sorts. Well, that never happened. But having said that, an homage to that original idea in the form of a weapon would certainly be intriguing. Don't you think so, Gmod Mario?
Don't you dare mess this up. Nintendo does not like misrepresentation.
Okay. Well, here's introducing the Pipe and Spike. Name, as always, is susceptible to change, especially if Mario doesn't like it. Alrighty then, on to the stats, I suppose. The Pipe and Spike would be a blaster of sorts, with its crossover inspiration being, of course, the iconic Mario pipes, mixed in with some Splatoon motifs, and with some added flair inspired from the blasters seen in the Mario and Rabbids games. One of the few crossover exceptions I was referring to, and also one of the weird ones. Though at this point we also have Mario and Sans in the same game as frickin' Sora and Minecraft Steve. Anything's possible nowadays. Regardless, the weapon would work in a bit of a unique manner compared to other blasters. Where most blasters are slow, strong, and travel in a pretty straight trajectory, the Pipe and Spike would function a bit differently, as when it's fired, a ball of ink would shoot out, then upon hitting a surface, would bounce off, and then explode upon hitting another. Though if it hits a player directly in the first bounce, it will explode, but it won't be a one-shot like other blasters, and will have a smaller blast radius. However, once it's bounced off an additional surface, it will be a one-shot if a direct hit, alongside having increased travel speed and explosion radius. My thought is this would essentially be a direct representation of all the jumping around you would expect to do in a typical Mario game, crammed into the form of a weapon. For stats, I was thinking it'd be pretty similar to the range blaster, with slightly worse range and marginally better fire rate, being almost a side grade for people who want a blaster that can potentially cut corners and catch people off guard. But as always, stats aren't my specialty, and I will never truly know how to tackle them. I'm the ideas guy, the lore guy, not the balance. Is that a word? As for a kit, I think a splash bomb would be nice for a sub. Given that this would use up a lot of ink, a low ink sub would be a huge benefit. And for the special, I'm not as sure. Even with splash bomb, due to the unique way this weapon fires, close encounters are likely going to be difficult. So I think a special like triple splashdown might be decent on here. This would give it an additional option in a close combat situation that's going south, while still being avoidable enough to be considered risky to use. I know there's a lot of conflicting feelings on this special, but I like it. And all these kits are just my opinions, and I'm more than happy to hear your own thoughts. How much I ask to hear your own thoughts, you would think I'm uncertain about everything. Did I put my shoes on this morning? I don't know, tell me in the comments below.
Chili dogs.
It only really makes sense to go here after Mario. I freaking love this smug ass hat of the Hedgehog. Sonic 3? Also, IDW comics are peak as all hell. Just in general, give IDW a franchise and they would treat that shit with respect. Probably. I've only read like 2 series from them. Still peak though. And for once, my random comments do correlate to the topic at hand, as the IDW comics gave me a great idea for our Sonic weapon. So y'all remember those goofy Wispins from Sonic Forces? I guess a better question would be, do y'all remember Sonic Forces? Hell, I wish I could forget. Either way, those were lame as fuck there, but IDW made them seem cool as hell. And due to that, ended up being my main inspiration. With that out of the way, I decided to make dually Wispins, based on our iconic blue blur. I don't think I need to explain why dualies fit Sonic so well. They're stylish, speedy, and way past cool. Plus, rolling around is kinda Sonic's thing. So, without further ado, introducing the Rapid Dualies. Or if you want to be like super blunt, we could literally just call them the Sonic Dualies or Speedster Dualies. Whatever works best in your head, really. These would be incredibly fast, alongside having the quickest rolls in the game similar to the Dapples. But to try and make them a tad more distinct, these would be even more of a specialty weapon, having less range in exchange for higher damage, alongside rolls that would go further than your average Dualies, with each roll increasing the player's range for about a second or two. I think this would be enough to distinct them from Dapples and keep them used in niche situations, and not be a total replacement. I guess it would come down to a lot of fine tuning. I mean, we can just pretend that the stats have been perfected and these weapons aren't competing for each other anymore. I mean, even then, it's kinda lame for a Sonic-based dually. You know what, I actually want to throw in a different idea for how these dualies would work, just because I think my first idea was a bit too lackluster. So my second idea would be to introduce some sort of homing mechanic similar to Sonic's iconic homing attack, with the dualies functioning pretty similar to typical dualies, yet in exchange for a higher ink usage and a lesser dodge roll can be charged up, and upon shooting said charged attack, it would then proceed to home on to the nearest enemy in a similar manner to the torpedo, but definitely faster. This would be a pretty unique mechanic and would be a nice homage to the franchise this weapon is supposed to represent, though giving it a similar mechanic to what's on a sub feels like it could be a bit much. Granted, torpedo has 2 different uses and also explodes on contact, so maybe it's fine. You can always let me know in the comments below if you prefer it just being a Dapple side grade, or if you like the idea of them being normalish dualies, but with a cool charge homing attack thing. As for a kit, this weapon would probably struggle to kill quite a bit. Sure, it would do pretty decent close range damage, but getting close in a game like Splatoon can prove difficult. So I feel like a sub like Curling or Splat Bomb would be quite nice on it. Curling would allow for switch ups and approaches. Granted, most Splatoon players can bait out curling bombs, so maybe not so much, but you know, I like curlings. While Splat Bombs are essentially good on any weapons, minus I guess ones that use up a huge amount of ink, as they give the player a tool that can easily be thrown out in many different situations. For a special, I was thinking Tacticooler to really double down on the speed aspect. No real other reason, just some kit theming, I guess. I mean, I'm sure Sonic likes soda, so yeah, I mean, that works. TF2 has so many goddamn weapons. This decision could take quite literally forever. Mario, I'm done with your section. You can leave now. I mean, I've been done with your section for a while. What a weird dude. Holy! Alright, well now I'm being threatened by Spy TF2, meaning I will now pick one of Spy's many knives, as I don't particularly want to be shot by another fictional character. With that, I chose the Big Earner, a weapon that gives Spy a small speed boost upon getting a successful backstab, a mechanic I think could probably be directly translated into Splatoon with some balance tweaks. Introducing the Wage Slicer, because I couldn't think of a name, so I just kind of looked up synonyms for Big Earner. I'm really bad at names. In terms of looks, this is a mostly accurate translation of the Big Earner, mixed with, of course, a Splatana and those weird jelly finger trap things that you'd see in like a dollar store bargain bin. For stats and all that jazz, I was thinking this be another close range weapon with the lowest range of all the given Splatanas, maybe not by like a large margin though. And to counteract that, it would have decent damage and okay speed. However, the real deal maker would be its special trait. For those who don't know, Splatanas have the ability to charge up a slash attack, which does crazy close range damage, typically splatting most opponents upon direct hit with a fully charged slice, which wouldn't be all too different here, except having a slower initial charge. However, that's because upon getting a kill with said charge, the player would be granted with a short speed boost, increasing their movement speed in and outside of ink, alongside their charge speed, allowing them to potentially capitalize off this initial kill to snowball into another, just like the Big Earner. At least, that's the idea. In both Splatoon and TF2, this varies, as a lot of the time, even with a speed boost running at your enemies, tends to get you pretty effectively put in the ground. Even then, I think it'd be a fun and balanced enough weapon, as it would require a bit of strategy and patient planning to use properly, with it punishing players who blindly run directly at enemies, especially if they're outranged, which in this case, they likely will be. Of course, stats can be tweaked. It's why I haven't given any like solid numbers this time around. I don't want to get those set in stone, I just want to get the ideas across in general. As for Kid, I think Point Sensor or Squid Beak can be 2 good picks. Point Sensor would allow the user to potentially locate enemies, and given the low range of the slicer, it could prove pretty useful for setting up attacks. Alongside that, this would be quite a low weight weapon, and with the speed boost could prove useful to get into sneaky spots to place a good squid beacon. As for specials, I couldn't think of a great one, but Splatter Color Screen? I think that could work well enough. I mean, it could distract or confuse players, allowing you to go in for a kill. I don't know though. I was going to say Zipcaster originally, but that is already on a Stamper kit, so I figured this be a neat second option, but I really do want to give it Zipcaster again though. I know Spy isn't zipping around like Spider-Man in TF2, but it would be kind of a fun way to show how we can just kind of pop up out of nowhere sometimes. That said, any of these options I think would do a great job of showing off the more defensive and supportive aspects of Spy's TF2 abilities, even if it's in kind of a weird and indirect way. or something like that. Before we continue, I hate to do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I just wanted to thank you all and say if you're enjoying this to do the YouTube thing and like, comment, and subscribe. Especially if you like games, horror, or animation, as I do plan to expand my content more in this coming year. Listen, I love Splatoon, but I don't want to be stuck in a creative bubble. So expect more varied videos with Splatoon content still mixed in, so don't go anywhere. Regardless, for our last collab, I wanted to do something more indie-based, as it is a popular trend for many modern collabs and definitely one I vibe with. So I decided on FNAF, mostly because I'm a huge goddamn nerd. And yes, I'm aware FNAF is not really indie anymore, but its roots are, so it counts. With that, I needed inspiration. Yeah, this'll do. We're just gonna do some remodeling and add a tinge of color. And, oh, I mean, I guess that represents FNAF. It's kind of just an exhaust with a bottle in it. Really? This is what I came up with? Freddy, what do you think? Should I redo this design? Oh, right. He's dead. Okay, well then I guess I'll decide myself, and a series that has been with me for almost half my life deserves a bit more respect in my opinion. As for this first one, I was thinking it could be kind of like a weird sploosh-esque shooter named the Mecha Shot. It would change between two different firing modes depending on how long the trigger is held down. With a tap of the button shooting out small splats of ink, that would go pretty far but would have really low damage, and if it's held down, it would sputter out a load of ink that is super inconsistent and uses up your tank fast. I don't know. This weapon isn't my favorite. I just kind of want to get to the redesign. So let's just get to the better one. Introducing the Marigo-Brella. Or we could just call it the Fazbrella. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Being inspired off of various older FNAF games and their general aesthetic, color palettes, and so forth, all tied together under the theme of a collapsible merry-go-round. Something that would certainly fit in the FNAF universe. In fact, a lot of the colors I used here were actually taken from one of the only merry-go-rounds seen in game. I am a lot more satisfied with this design, both being more unique and fun, while still having that FNAF theme to it. And on top of that, it's a Brella, a very underused but interesting class of weapons. As for stats and mechanics, I imagine this Brella would be pretty slow to shoot and deploy, with similar range to the base Splat Brella. However, it would be quite powerful and would support a unique shield mechanic. For those unaware, Splat Brellas are essentially the shotguns of Splatoon, yet to help counteract their low everything, if you hold down the shoot button after attacking, they pop open to form a shield, some of which have varying uses, like allowing you to continue shooting while deployed, or most commonly popping off the base to act as mobile cover. For the Marigo, I was thinking instead of popping off the base, it would now deflect shots, yet due to this mechanic, it would have lower durability than your average Brella. Let's say not quite as low as the undercover Brella, but hovering around that range. I think this would allow for interesting counterplay and strategies, alongside keeping it distinct from the other Brellas. I know it's not really as themed to the crossover as some of these other weapons, but I still like the idea, and I believe it'd be a nice addition to the Brella lineup. For a sub, I was thinking Fizzy Bomb, mostly because it works thematically. I mean, like, what are you gonna get at a pizza place for a drink? Probably soda, you know. But also it doubles as a solid choice for covering low-range weapons on top of a few other use cases. Then for the special, half of me wants to say Crab Tank because robots. The other half doesn't really know. Screw it, give it Crab Tank. It's the only super robotic themed special and it isn't on any other Brella kits for my knowledge. I don't know if it would be super good on a Brella, maybe that's why it's never been on there, or maybe it would be super good on a Brella and that's why no other Brellas have gotten it. But this is all hypothetical and it works too well thematically. I have to do it. But with that, we're done with this batch. This was a ton of fun. Letting myself be a lot more free and crazy with my concepts mechanics made this whole process so much more enjoyable. I'm not quite sure if any of these weapons would be good or if they'd be too good, but this is all just for fun, so don't sweat the small stuff. With all that said and done, this might be my favorite batch of weapons so far. Though I know there's things that could be improved upon, because while I've done a few of these videos at this point, designing weapons isn't my strong suit. I'd say that's characters, which is why I'm working on my own comics. I actually plan to publish some sneak peeks pretty soon, so you know, follow me on, I don't know, one of these two friggin' platforms or something. Regardless, I hope you all enjoyed this silly little video, and I can't wait to see you all next time. Before that, however, a special thanks to my YouTube member, Best Pro Gaming, and then another special thanks to my $15 patrons, Psyche Eclipse and Benjamin Baker. The extra support is super appreciated, especially since I've been sick this entire video. So I'm gonna stop talking now. Okay, bye.